out with the odd and in with the older. Gone is Kabelo Kwamanda and back is Dada Morero as the ninth mayor of Johannesburg since the 2016 local government elections. He returns to a city in a rapid state of decline and decay. The center of what was once Africa's golden city is not merely a shadow of its former glory, but barely recognizable in places as filth piles up on its streets, marked by crime and grime. And as the musical chairs play out in the council chamber, residents have long been crying for service delivery as political leaders continue to face accusations of corruption and nepotism. Can Johannesburg become a world-class African city once more? Dada Morero is the mayor of the city of Johannesburg and joins us now. Congratulations are in order, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning, Dada Bongani, and thank you for inviting me to the interview.
I say congratulations are in order, but do they ring hollow based on the mess you are inheriting?
Well, somebody has to do the job and try and, to a large extent, confront the challenges that are there and try and bring better solutions. So there's still hope that something can be done to address some of the pressing matters that are affecting the city of Johannesburg. So perhaps it's somebody has to do it, and maybe I'm one of that individual, together with the collective of the mayoral committee, who must try and turn around the tide to make Johannesburg better once more. So I've welcomed the responsibility and appreciate the fact that the almost entire council and all parties in council except for one has shown confidence that I'll be able to do the job, and I'm not going to take their confidence for granted. Mine is to ensure that I focus on the job and ensure that in the next few months, visible changes should be seen by our residents.
The city I described in my introduction is a far cry from what Jozi once was, but your detractors will say, well, hang on, the ANC, your party, has been at the center of creating the mess.
Well, Bongani, I would not agree entirely. If you could go back and review the city before 2016, you'd see that the city was at its highest performance. The city was stable. The city was showing signs of growth in so many sectors. So, in fact, I would suggest that you do that exercise, and you'll see that the loss of power by the ANC in 2016 contributed to the instability that we saw post-2016 with changes of governments, changes of mayors, and the city which was not stable, bringing of people who may not necessarily have the skills and the expertise. So clearly, we have to do that exercise. But I don't think it will help us now. What will help us is what are we going to be doing moving forward to ensure that we change the narrative. We must also accept that since 2016, we saw an uncontrolled growth, or rather urbanization of the city through massive informal settlements that then forced the city to redirect some of its resources to respond to the challenges of those communities. And we must also accept, Bongani, that the city is faced with an uncontrollable growth, which is affecting its ability to be able to provide services. And we need partnerships with province, national government, and the private sector to also intervene and help us to navigate some of the challenges. But in terms of basic services that we should be supplying, I think we're trying our level best even to try and improve the quality of those basic services.
Let me come in and say to you, I mean, as you say, let's not go back, but I would probably just, as a response to the 2016 matter, say whatever you may think the city was in those years, the voters were certainly not convinced, hence leading to that loss of power. But let's come to things more current than that. Let's talk about some of the allegations that have been reported about particularly officials from your party, people you serve with amongst the top officials of the ANC in the city of Johannesburg, accusations of nepotism, accusations of corruption, particularly when it comes to the entities that are at the coalface of the service delivery of the growing city you describe. What's your response to the broad picture?
No, Bongani, I would have seen 2 articles in the last 2 weeks just around issues on entities. And I've then requested yesterday that I need a consolidated report about what actions are being taken to investigate those matters. You remember I just came in now and I have to check what is it that the administration has been doing. Equally so, I will be presenting the matter to the leadership of the ANC in Johannesburg to say this is what came out of the Mail and Guardian articles, and some of the leaders of the ANC have been accused, so that we can start our processes to deal with the matter and understand if there's fact to what has happened. So I will be raising it. We're having a Lekgotla this weekend, and I will table the matter on our agenda to try and get to the bottom of this matter.
My difficulty with that answer, Mr. Mayor, is yes, of course, you're coming in as a new mayor in terms of the mayor's office, but as the MMC for finance, it was ultimately your hand that unlocked the kitty. And so, for example, some of the allegations is we have an entity like Pick It Up, that has a CFO still firmly entrenched in his position after he was found guilty following a forensic investigation of gross dishonesty, the loss of 1.3 billion rand for the city through alleged fraud and corruption. As the MMC for finance, you would have had an eye on those figures. You can't not know.
No. Remember, if you're talking about figures, one would have to know what had transpired. But what we understand at this stage, without preempting the investigation, that there's an allegation, of course, of 1.3 billion. And I want to understand how 1.3 billion could leave the coffers of the city. So I have to understand it. I saw that in an article and I asked myself questions. It's so difficult, Bongani, to get money outside of government. It's very difficult to get money out of government. So I must understand how this allegation, remember it remains an allegation until proven otherwise. And I still think from face value, it's really impractical, but I don't want to preempt the investigation.
Sure.
To the board.
Hold on, Mr. Mayor. Where again I'll disagree with you is
the board would have done an investigation, and the board would probably have cleared at some point. I think I know the case related to the CFO, which I think the board closed his investigation sometimes early last year. And said that there was no wrongdoing on the side of the CFO, and he was then reappointed into the position of CFO. And remember, it's an entity, and to a large extent, it has a board that controls its affairs and makes decisions, though the city remains a shareholder. And in some of these matters, the city has to concur. And I guess at that point, the entity, together with the MMC responsible for infrastructure, would have made the right decision. But where I would have came in as an MMC of finance is to oversee whether the finances in all the entities are properly being accounted for and are properly being used. And I said, requested to understand how the 1.3 billion disappear in the city's coffers, which I don't think is possible.
I hear you, Mr. Mayor, and I think my quibble was simply the fact that you said an investigation, or these are mere allegations, and I wanted to put to you that, well, there was a forensic investigation that in fact found that the CFO was a threat to the best interests of the city, and that's how the 1.3 billion, as you say, disappeared. Because, of course, it was appointed to a number of companies to provide Pick It Up with vehicles for waste management. But perhaps that's detail you and I can chat about at a later stage, as you suggest. The residents of the city, as I said in my introduction, have long been crying for service delivery. I can point you to any number of issues, from gaping potholes. I live in an area, for example, where the R25 road project has been left abandoned years after it was started. There are shacks in the shadow of the Carlton, not to mention those in the sky, as we saw in the Usindiso building fire. Any highway in Johannesburg, the lights are off in the middle of the night. What's your vision to fix our beloved city, Mr. Mayor?
Well, thanks for the statements you've made. Look, we have accepted that there are challenges, and we can't pretend there are no problems. Problems are bigger in the city. In the inner city, we've got bigger problems of buildings, and some of them were acted. The courts acted against us. We are at the stage where at least we have now taken 6 of the buildings, which we won in the court because we took a view to move away from eviction but to relocation, which the court has then granted us, and we won the court cases. So we're trying all sorts of things to try and deal with the inner city. We're also engaging with people like PIC, we're engaging with the private sector to say, once the buildings we have taken over, can we get the private sectors to come in to invest and take these buildings? So already we've got 6 buildings that were successful in the courts, and we have put them into the queue. Now, there's also challenges. There are places where, of course, we have started processes to resurface the roads. If you go around, you'll see whether it's on Ondeka or all other roads, especially in ulterior roads. We're trying to resurface them so that we can bring them into better condition. Yes, there are still areas where we've got potholes. We still have bridges that are not in the right condition, that we're trying to get resources to help us deal with those. So all these things also boils down to the resources that we require as the city, but we are trying to use the district development model so that we create those partnerships with province and national for us to be able to mobilize the resources. So we do admit, Bongani, there are challenges, but we must confront these challenges, find solutions, and once more create a better city for the citizens of Johannesburg.
Dada Morero is the mayor of the city of Johannesburg. Thank you for coming on to the show. So contrast the challenges that he describes with the 1.3 billion rand that he still wants to investigate to find out what happened to all that money. Are you reassured?
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions,
your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.